Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MSP. Ukraine War Frontline update for the 8th of April 2024. If you don't know what lines on my map mean, please check out the key on the video at the moment. Pause the video. Right, we're going to go to the front line. You can see there's hardly any change to the front line. The whole of the front line is as unmoved as far as the source mappers are concerned, apart from the area around Avdiivka. Now, northeast, that's still good news. No movement there. There are some talks that the Russians are getting ready for a counter-offensive, or not counter-offensive, an offensive around the Kharkiv area. So some are claiming they're gearing up to retake Kharkiv, and that's mainly, or maybe why they are softening the city there. Others are hinting that Sumy is being softened itself by huge quantities of guided glide bombs that are dropping on there, and actually that could be a precursor to attacking Kiev. So some are suggesting that Kiev could be under threat again. I don't think the Russians would remotely have the army with which to do that in order to do any of these northern attacks, despite how attractive they might seem strategically. I think are practically impossible, because you would have to draw so much away from the eastern front line and southern front line to get the military capabilities to move in a serious fashion from up north, that you would weaken yourself elsewhere, and the Ukrainians would no doubt take advantage of that. So I'd agree with Anders Puck Nelson, who said in his recent video that any offensive is likely to come along the eastern front line, and I'd fully agree with that. There's an interesting observation came originally from Phillips O'Brien that said, long gone are the days of either army really advancing quickly with mechanized maneuvers. They use maneuvers to drop troops off, but in terms of advancing, so you won't see the Kharkiv counteroffensive, that lightning counteroffensive that took huge amounts of land very quickly. You won't see that a Russian version of that. It seems like the Russians are only able, and we'll talk about the Russians now, but it could be the Ukrainians if they were attacking, only able to advance at the speed of a walk. They can only advance at the speed of infantry moving, and that's because these mechanized columns have become so vulnerable to drones, to mines, and to anti-tank guided missiles, as well as indeed helicopters if they are active, particularly Russian helicopters on Ukrainian moves, that it's so difficult to have these large maneuver attacks. And in fact, the Russians have lost so much equipment that the chance of them doing huge mechanized maneuvers in the same way that we might have seen more at the beginning of the war, those days I think are gone. And so whatever attack the Russians do, it will be more of a grinding attack, I would suggest, and that's what Anders Puck Nielsen states. So I think that's a pretty good conclusion. Right, you can see there are no changes to the Seversk front line beneath that northeastern area. And then we get to Bakhmut, no changes there. But we're just going to drop in to the Bakhmut area because JR, with the lack of pins added to the map, he has been... He's not one to be idle, is he? Because he has added this, which I think is useful. These are the pins are bridges, and the purple, I guess, rectangles are culverts. Just to let you know what a culvert is, it looks something like that. It's a structure that channels water past an obstacle or to a subterranean waterway. So that could be areas where either side could get over the canal. So what's important, and I've neglected to really talk about this for a long time, the importance of the canal cannot be overstated. It's just very significant as a defensive line for the Ukrainians. So although the Ukrainians are under a lot of pressure to the west of Chasiv Yar, particularly in the buildings around the forest area, just here where we saw the Russians pressuring, having a big, fairly, I say big, but comparatively small compared to the beginning of the war, but still a sizable mechanized assault there. The vehicles were used just to drop the troops off, really. So that was a success, you could argue, for the Russians, although it's repelled, and I don't think it particularly was. But they can take ground to the west of the canal, I guess, fairly successfully or without too much of an issue, although they seem to be taking huge losses in doing so. But then when they get to this canal, that runs down here, they'll have a much more significant issue because they would have to bridge across the canal in order to get the mechanized equipment across and thus to get meaningfully large numbers of troops across. This canal, as you can see with these bridges, comes down here and then goes on further down here to Kurdimivka, which, if you remember, there was a large or a large culvert here. I called them tunnels, but technically they're long culverts, where the water passes under the ground and either side can attack across there if they so desired. So there's a culvert. There are other bridges on the way up here, a culvert here that you could get across, a bridge, culvert, bridge, and these have no doubt, I assume that they've been destroyed. I'd be very surprised if these bridges close to the front line still remain as bridges. A very long culvert here could be an opportunity for the Russians to get vehicles across. It does look, however, like, is that a culvert that then becomes not a culvert? No, I think that possibly is a culvert there as well. So this, although the canal runs here, actually the Russians would be able to get equipment across there, I would have thought. I might have to look more closely at that, but I don't think you can get to any kind of street level there. I don't think it's going to allow it, no. So, yeah, this could be an opportunity there for the Russians to overcome the challenge of the canal. The canal is going to be, and the same down south here, the canal is going to be the challenge for the Russians in the Chasiv Yar area. Right, thanks for JR for pointing those out on the map. I guess we'll have to see which ones remain as passable methods of getting across the canal. Right, then we come to Avdiivka here, where there's still evidence of lots of activity going on. Here's a video of dance music, yeah, because we need that. North of Avdiivka, a Bradley infantry fighting vehicle absolutely raking the tree line there, and this is to show that Bradleys are still being used and that the Ukrainians are still attacking in places. So this is an active defense that they're employing around Avdiivka, where they aren't just soaking up the Russian pressure, they are pushing back in certain places. And if that's North Avdiivka, I would have thought this area around here is, for me, been the most important area for their active defense. They need to keep the Russians at bay here so that they can't get around and come in from the north behind the Ukrainian lines, where you've got this river, the Derna River, that comes down here in the higher ground in this area. If the Russians can get down there, then they negate that difficult terrain. I don't know. That has been geolocated as well. So let's have a look at there. That is really quite far north, actually, further than I thought. So that is up here. Could be around this area. Keramik that's north of Krasnohorivka, on the same kind of level as Ocheretny. So that is, goodness me, where are we talking about? Let's zoom in a little bit. There. So that is somewhere around here. Tree line around here, Bradley being used in some kind of active defensive role. But you can see that, according to Suryat maps, the Russians have made some gains around Novokonyovo. We saw that yesterday from Suryat maps. Not agreed to by the other mappers, though. Interesting. Andrew Perpetua saying that Bodichi looking more and more like it's fully under Russian control, pretty much up to the river there, or almost to the river there. That's general agreement with the other mappers in Bodichi. And then, so it's not that shows in the last 24 hours any movement, but that there's confirmation of the original claim. And then Suryat maps claiming that the Russians have moved again in the Pervomaisky area. Now, I talked about this last night, but said that it had been done since JR had done the previous mapping. Well, now he's added that one on. So that was actually from yesterday. So if you take that away, considering I talked about that last night, then really, and assume that isn't from the last 24 hours, but is confirmatory, then perhaps this is really the only gain on the entire front line for today, just that one single pin. And I think that's fairly significant. It means that the Russians aren't making those consistent large gains, that everything is grinding and difficult, and that we know definitely that they are losing huge amounts of personnel and vehicles, because we see the footage every single day. I'm seeing, like I've told you for the last week, really, so much footage coming online. Now, the last thing I'm going to talk about, just because there's nothing to mention on the front lines really, are these rigs again. So I've got some of them. It's not all of them. I think there are some over here nearer to possibly maybe nearer to the coast, not 100% sure, but these are gas rigs, thanks to JR who put these on. And actually there's something to discuss concerning them. So this is Kyiv Independent saying military intelligence says that Ukraine directly controls the Black Sea oil rigs, undermining Russia's reconnaissance capabilities. I don't know, some are oil, some possibly gas. I'm pretty sure that some of those are gas rigs. Anyway, Russia's reconnaissance capabilities in the sky, on the water and on land suffered after Ukraine regained control of a set of oil drilling platforms located in the Black Sea last autumn, Ukraine's military intelligence said on April the 8th. Kyiv announced that it had regained control over the platforms, informally known to Ukraine as the Boyko Towers, after pro-Russian politician Yuri Boyko, as well as 2 mobile rigs in September 2023. These rigs are usefully positioned close enough to Crimea to cause them a bit of an issue. It means you can get electronic warfare equipment on there. You can get ATGMs, anti-tank guided missiles, that can hit Russian boats, or planes with MANPADS, man-portable air defense systems, something like a Stinger on board. You can get them on there, and you can protect this area from Russian interference, whilst also using them as, and I think they have been used as springboards to do little raids into Crimea. So some of the ones in this Cape, the Western Cape here, is it Turkencut? Oh, I forget now. Goodness me, my memory isn't quite what it should be. But anyway, when they attacked on Onivka and Mayak with some Marines, I believe, they would have used these relatively close rigs as waypoints, as launch pads to do those attacks. So these are useful for a number of reasons. Obviously, you get good reconnaissance of drones that come by to attack Odessa and other places if they pass over the sea. And indeed, you might have a chance of shooting some of those drones down if they pass too close to the rigs, or it means that they have to skirt around, probably over here, to get away from that. But either way, if they change the behavior, the Russians, then that's useful, or that they can actually do active reconnaissance of that area. So good stuff. That is still a useful scenario for the Ukrainians there. No change to the front lines, particularly today, as mentioned. So that'll be me for the Frontline Update. Take care. Speak to you soon.